Hi, this is Isabel. I'm currently doing my American author project, and the author I do is Nathaniel Hawthorne. Nathaniel Hawthorne was born in Salem, Massachusetts in 1804, and he died in 1864. His father, a ship captain, died of yellow fever at sea when Nathaniel was only 4. Since then, he lived with his grief-stricken mother, who became overly protective and pushed him toward isolated pursuits. Hawthorne's childhood left him shy and bookish. He has great puritanical family background. His great-great-grandfather was a crucial judge in the Salem witch trials. The family feel they have been cursed by their connection to this sad event. Therefore, much of Hawthorne's writing deals with his shame over his connection to the Puritans. Hawthorne went to Bowdoin College in 1821. He didn't study for any particular profession, but he was an avid reader and writer in college. He graduated in 1825. His stories always have a puritanical background, and his style is quite gloomy and dark, and sometimes depressing. Supernatural forces always dominate his stories. There are some reasons. Growing up in Salem, Massachusetts probably had a very influential effect. Salem was considered one of the most haunted and supernatural places on earth. The loss of his father when he was only 4 years old could have been a reason for his dark style. The lack of a father figure to a growing boy can often have adverse effects. Furthermore, when he was a child, a leg injury left him bedridden for a considerable time. And during this period, he developed an exceptional taste for reading and thinking. And in his 20s, he spent some years living alone in isolation and solitude. These solitary years might explain why his stories are always haunted. And he's famous for his many short stories, like The Birthmark and The Minister's Black Veil. Now, let's talk about the story of The Birthmark. Elmer is a late 18th century scientist who is totally and completely committed to his work. He devotes his entire life in the laboratory. However, just recently, he left his laboratory to the care of his assistant to marry a beautiful woman, Georgiana. Georgiana is distinctive in that she has a small red birthmark on her cheek in the shape of a tiny hand. Otherwise, she is perfect everywhere. The red birthmark is like the crimson stain in the snow. Most men who pursued her found the birthmark attractive, but some catty women said that it messed up an otherwise perfect face. After his marriage, for he thought little or nothing of the matter before, Elmer discovered that he doesn't like the birthmark at all. He thinks Georgiana would be perfect if the birthmark was removed. Georgiana has always liked the birthmark, until Elmer brings up the topic one day soon after their marriage. Georgiana, has it never occurred to you that the mark upon your cheek might be removed? No, indeed. To tell you the truth, it has been so often called a charm that I was simple enough to imagine it might be so. Ah, upon another face, perhaps it might, but never on yours. No, dearest Georgiana, you came so nearly perfect from the hand of nature that this slightest possible defect, which we hesitate whether to term a defect or beauty, shocks me as being the visible mark of earthly imperfection. Shocks you, my husband? Then why did you take me from my mother's side? You cannot love what shocks you. Georgiana falls completely to pieces because Elmer thinks the birthmark is ugly. She now thinks herself ugly. Late one night, when the lights were growing dim, she herself for the first time voluntarily took up the subject. Do you remember, my dear Elmer? Have you any recollection of a dream last night about this odious hand? None whatever. I might well dream of it, for before I fell asleep it had taken a pretty firm hold of my fancy. And you did dream of it? A terrible dream. I wonder that you can forget it. And now Elmer remembered his dream. He had fancied himself with his assistant Aminadab, attempting an operation for the removal of the birthmark. But the deeper went the knife, the deeper sank the hand, until at length its tiny grasp appeared to have caught hold of Georgiana's heart. He, however, was resolved to cut it away. Georgiana is so upset by this dream that she tells Elmer to figure out a way to get rid of the birthmark. Elmer has already been working on such a plan. He takes Georgiana into his laboratory, and he has set up a special room for her to hang out while he devises an auxiliary with which to remove the birthmark. "My dear, the auxiliary is ready." "Okay, I will drink whatever you brought me." After she drinks it, she falls asleep, and the birthmark starts to fade from her face. Sadly, Georgiana wakes up. "My poor Elmer, you have rejected the best the earth could offer. Elmer, dearest, I'm dying." Therefore, she dies.
The theme of the story is striving for perfection.
Throughout the story, Elmer wants Georgiana to be a perfect woman. He is unable to see her for the beautiful woman she really is, due to one insignificant flaw, the birthmark on her face. And she feels like she has no self-worth if she is not perfect in her husband's eyes. Elmer's insane quest for perfection is the main theme of the story. The author argues that true perfection cannot and should not exist in this world, as when Georgiana is finally rid of her birthmark, she dies because she has become too perfect for the flawed world. Hawthorne's works are important to American literature because he was one of the first American writers to explore the hidden motivations of his character. He held a dark view of human nature. People are inherently self-seeking. The world is a relatively bad place in his view. Much of his work belongs to the gene of dark romanticism, which emphasizes on human fallibility, sin, and self-destruction. Unlike most fiction writers of his time, he was not primarily interested in creating a sentimental effect on readers.